Hi, how are you all? Glad you're here. So, since a lot of people wanted to hear me read them a story or wanted me to, give them the information for all the audio getting, I decided I would just go ahead and read you a bedtime story if you want. So I thought I'd read you my favorite book if you all want. It's called Johannes Cabal, the Necromancer, and it's actually part of the series. So I have a couple things I'd like to go over before we start. First of all, like I said, it's part of a series. We're not going to get it done tonight. We're going to read a couple chapters. Now, thank you for the compliment. Thank you. We're going to read a couple chapters and see how you all like it. If you hate it, obviously you don't have to stick around. If no one really likes it, I'll stop reading it. I don't mind. But it's one of my favorite books, so I was kind of, I kind of thought as long as people wanted me to listen to my voice, I could read you a book. And maybe it might put you to sleep, and maybe you'll like it, and maybe you'll want to go read the rest of the series. That'd be really cool. And anyway, I thought if you did like it enough, we could make it a series and I could continue reading out of it. Pretty much every Tuesday is my idea. I would go live right about this time, read for you about 2 to 3 hours, and we go through the entire book. Hey, and we're reading Johannes Cabal, the Necromancer. That is the first one in the series, at least. If you all hate it, I won't continue it, but if you do like it, awesome, I'm glad you're looking forward to it. But yeah, so I thought we'd read that. Now, you're probably wondering, if we start it, how are we going to finish it? What if I can't watch the entire live? What if I can't, make it every single week? Totally fine. I've got a great idea for that, actually. I was going to download the live after we're done here, and then I was going to put it up on YouTube, number the chapters that we read, and the date that it came out, so you can all find me at Anxious Undertaker on YouTube, and you can watch the ones that you missed if you missed some. So I thought that would be a good way to sort of bypass that. The YouTube, it's at Anxious Undertaker. You can find that. There's nothing on it yet. I want to preface that. There's going to be the recording of these lives in case you want to hear me read the parts that you missed. You can go find them on the YouTube after they're uploaded, probably tomorrow. And for anyone who doesn't want to sit through all that, who made it through most of the live but didn't get to finish because they had to leave, well, I'm going to post a recap video on TikTok every Wednesday, sort of recapping what happened and what you missed. Yeah, it is just me today. Denki said he might be in chat because he wanted to listen to me read too. Hey, Simfer Danks, so glad you're here. Okay, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm so glad you're here. I need to talk to you. I will pay you money for it, but I totally downloaded the fan art you did of me off your Instagram, and it's been my phone background, and I kind of want to make it my icon on YouTube and on TikTok, but I didn't want to do it without your permission or without, compensating you in some way. So, let me know if you're okay with that. If I can contact you on Instagram or get your Venmo or something, I don't know, I'll pay you. Yeah, all right. Cool, I'm glad that we covered that. Anyway, for people just dropping in, I'm going to go over it one more time, just so we all are clear. I'm going to read you a bedtime story. A bunch of people wanted me to drop the audiobooks that I worked on, and I'm not going to do that, but I will read you a bedtime story live. And we're going to be reading Johannes Cabal, the Necromancer. It's literally my favorite story. So if you hate it, you hate it, and we won't continue it. But if you like it, I'll be reading the entire thing on Tuesday, right around this time, for 2 to 3 hours. And then if you cannot get through the live, if you have to leave, if you have to go do life stuff, totally fine. If you can't make it one week, you can totally look it up on YouTube. I'm going to be posting the recordings of the lives on YouTube, also under Anxious Undertaker. Thank you for the roses. And also, I am going to be posting recaps on my TikTok. Thank you guys for the roses. And you can always hear the recap of what you missed on my TikTok the next day. Also probably post it to Instagram if you're on my Instagram. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. And hey, that's okay. That's what we're here for, to fall asleep. If you fall asleep, great. You can always catch the rest of the story on the YouTube if you miss some of it. I don't mind if you fall asleep. I won't be offended. That's kind of the goal. As a lot of people said that my voice really calms them and it can put you to sleep. So here's for you, maybe getting more sleep than me. But I'm really glad you... What color socks am I wearing? Sorry, that caught me off guard. Purple. Purple socks. They're really dirty because there's cat hair all over my floor. But now, that being said, I'm going to be reading to you. So I won't be looking up a majority of the time. I'm going to go ahead and say that. I'm going to be looking down at a book. There are words on a page. I got to read them. So I won't be paying attention to chat. If you have a question or a concern or anything, I'm going to be taking breaks in between chapters. So if you have any questions, concerns, you love the book, you hate the book, you have something to ask me, it can wait in between the chapters. Now, if someone drops in the middle of a chapter, I'm relying on you guys to fill people in on what they missed. So that way, we're all up to speed. Now, also, if you gift me anything while I'm reading, I'm probably not going to see it until I get off. But it does tell you who gives you stuff after you get off live. And just know that I appreciate it. I appreciate all of it. And yeah, so anyway, we're going to get started. If nobody has any objections and nobody has any other questions, if you have some, drop them real quick. If you have concerns before we start, I'd like to know them. And then we'll get reading, and I'll tell you what it's about. Well, obviously it's about a necromancer, and his name is Johannes. So, you have a Quaitlin. It's Johannes Cabal the Necromancer. It's a book about a necromancer, and the first one is him making a deal with Satan. It's a really good book. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, I think Dinky is going to be dropping by because I actually referred this book to Dinky, and he loved this book, and he's read it. So, and he said he wanted to hear me read it, so he might be dropping in. No, you're good. It's all right. If it happens multiple times, I kind of have a problem with it, but if you just, drop the wrong pronouns once, yeah, everybody gets one, so you're good. Anyway, and I got some ambient music set up. I made you some tea. Took a tip from Minty Bong Water, and I made you some chamomile tea. I'm going to set it over here. Thanks. Lady Eva's in chat, and she is my dog. I'm counting on you to monitor the chat for me, so I appreciate it. I did eat today. Dinky actually made me some curry, and I ate before I started, so... Anyway, so we're going to start reading this book. Is everybody ready? Everybody got a comfy blanket, your pajamas on, go to the bathroom, everybody get ready, because... I'm going to go ahead and start, okay? Oh gosh. I messed up my microphone. Can you all still hear me? Okay. I'm using the microphone because I figured it'd be a little easier. All right. And keep in mind, this is all recorded live, so I can't edit out when I cough or misspeak or anything. And I'm going to be real with you. There are a lot of words in this book I've never said out loud. I don't even think half of them you can even find... pronunciations of, because a lot of them are like demon names. Also, warning for occult themes and practices in this book. Not really, it's fiction, but in case, you're sensitive or you're very Christian or it somehow offends you. Good, get all your stuffies and blankets ready. We're getting ready to go. All right. Chapter 1, in which a scientist visits hell and a deal is struck. Walpurgis Nacht, the Hexenacht, the last night of April, the night of witches, when evil walks abroad. He stood at a desolate and lonely place where there would be no interruption, no prying eyes. The air smelled metallic with freshly spilt blood. The body of a decapitated virgin kid goat lay nearby. He had no alloyed metal about him but for a thin-bladed sword of fine steel he held in his right hand. The arm was naked, his shirt sleeve rolled up to the biceps, and a silver coin wrapped in paper nestled in his waistcoat pocket. Before him burned a fire of white wood. His name was Johannes Cabal, and he was summoning a demon. O Arios, Almozean, Arios, Membrot. The chanted names faded into the unusually still night air. Only the crackling of the fire accompanied him. Jana, Etidnamas, Zariatnatmix, and so on. He drew a deep breath and sighed, bored with the ritual. A, E, A, J, A, T, M, O. And there was a hidden meaning in the names he must call, the letters he must chant. But that didn't mean he had to approve or even be impressed by them. As he recited the grand conjuration, he thought that some magicians might have better served the world by writing crossword puzzles. Then space distorted, and he was no longer alone. The demon's name was Lucifuge Rofocal. He stood a little taller than Cabal's 6 feet, but the bizarre fool's cap he wore, 3 flopping horns, or perhaps tentacles, ending with arrowheads, made his height vary from moment to moment. In one hand he held a bag containing, at least symbolically, the riches of the world, in the other a golden hoop. He wore a segmented, studded leather skirt, rather like a Roman soldier's. Beneath it, fur-covered legs ended in hooves. He had a fat anteater's tail and a silly little Hercule Poirot mustache. As is often the case with demons, Lucifuge looked like an anatomical game of consequences. "Lo!" cried the demon, "I am here! What dost thou seek of me? Why dost thou disturb my repose? Smite me no more with that dread rod." He looked at Cabal. "Where's your dread rod?" "Oh, I left it at home," replied Cabal. "Didn't think I really needed it." "You can't summon me without a dread rod," said Lucifuge, appalled. "You're here, aren't you?" "Well, yes, but under false pretenses. You haven't got a goatskin or 2 vervain crowns or 2 candles of virgin wax made by a virgin girl and duly blessed. Have you got the stone called Ematil?" "I don't even know what Ematil is." Neither did the demon. He dropped the subject and moved on. 4 nails from the coffin of a dead child? Don't be fatuous. Half a bottle of brandy? I don't drink brandy. It's not for you. "I have a hip flask," said Cabal, and threw it to him. The demon caught it and took a dram. "Cheers," said Lucifuge, and threw it back. They regarded each other for a long moment. "This really is a shambles," the demon added finally. "What did you summon me for, anyway?" The gates of hell are an impressive structure. A great adamantine finger of rock a mile in diameter and 2 miles high punches through the surface of the cracked and baking desert plain of Limbo. On one side of this impenetrable edifice are the gates themselves. Massive iron constructions, hundreds of feet wide and 1,000 high. Their rough, barely worked surfaces are pocked and pitted with great bolts driven through in ragged lines, huge bands of brass running across in uneven ranks. one could be forgiven for thinking hell's a popular place to get into. Perhaps, surprisingly, it is. On the outside, one wonders what happens once you pass through that terrible, cruel portal. Some believe that all hell is somehow crammed within the rock, a place where dimensions mean nothing. Others say that immediately beyond the gates within the hollowed rock is a great chasm that opens into the pit of hell, and that those stepping within must surely plunge straight to their eternal dooms. Others believe that the rock conceals the top of a very big escalator. Nobody on the outside knows for sure, but everyone wants to find out. And they want to find out because anything is better than the forms. Lots of forms, stacks of forms, an average of 9,747 of them were required to gain entrance to hell. The largest form ran to 15,497 questions, the shortest to just 5. But 5 of such subtle phraseology and labyrinthian grammar and malicious ambiguity that, released into the mortal world, they would certainly have formed the basis of a new religion, or, at least, a management course. This, then, was the first torment of hell as engineered by the soul of a bank clerk. Nobody had to fill in the forms, of course, but given that the alternative was eternity spent naked in an endless desert that has never known night, most people found themselves sooner or later queuing up at the small porter's door set into one of hell's gates. There they would receive a form entitled Infernal Regions, Local Authority, Hades Admission Application Provisional, AAAA-342, and a soft pencil. Congas of hopeful applicants wound around the gatehouse like a line drawn by somebody wanting to find out how much writing you could get out of a box of ballpoints. The formerly quiet desert hummed to a steady drone of sub-vocalized reading and flipped pages. New arrivals and old hands queued patiently at the porter's door to hand in and receive forms. The quickest route through the paper trail necessitated the completion of 2,785. But nobody had yet fulfilled the extremely narrow conditions that would permit such a speedy passage. Most could anticipate 3 or 4 times as many, not counting forms rejected for mistakes. The hand-picked team of administrative imps that dealt with admissions didn't like errors at all, nor did they issue erasers. Through the muttering crowds, stepping over form fillers and never pausing to apologize, came a pale man. Johannes Cabal was walking to hell. Tow-headed, lean, and in his late 20s, but with the spirit of that youth long since evaporated, Cabal seemed otherwise unremarkable, except for his air of intent, his unwavering advance on the gatehouse, and his clothes. "Hey, watch it!" barked Al Capone, wrestling with the spelling of venereal as Cabal stepped over him. "Why don't you just—" The protest died on his lips. Hey! That guy's dressed! He's got clothes!" The guy did indeed have clothes. A short, black frock coat, slouch-brimmed black hat, black trousers, black shoes, a white shirt, and a tidy black cravat. He wore dark blue tinted glasses with side baffles, and he carried a black Gladstone bag. Unexciting clothes, but clothes nonetheless. It was the first sensation that the desert had ever experienced. The damned parted before Cabal, who, in his turn, seemed to accept this as his due. Some excitedly speculated that he must be a messenger from the other place, that the end times had finally arrived. Others pointed out that nothing in Revelation referred to a man in a black hat and sensible shoes. Cabal walked directly to the porter's door and slammed his hand on the closed window. While he waited for a reply, he looked about him, and the damned withered beneath his soulless and impassive gaze. The window snapped open. "What do you want?" demanded a weaselly man wearing a teller's shade from the other side. A man named Arthur Trubshaw. Sartre said that hell was other people. It transpires that one of the other people was Trubshaw. He had lived a life of bureaucratic exactitude as a clerk out in a dusty bank in a dusty town in the dusty Old West. He crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. Then he made double entries of his double entries, filed the crossed T's, cross-referenced the dotted I's in tabulated form against the dotted J's, barred any zeros for reasons of disambiguation, and shaded in the relative frequencies on a pie chart he was maintaining. Arthur Trubshaw's life of licentious proceduralism was brought to an abrupt end when he was shot to death during a robbery at the bank. He did not die heroically, not unless one considers demanding a receipt from bandits as being in some sense praiseworthy. Even in hell, Trubshaw had continued to demonstrate an unswerving devotion to the penny ante, the nitpicking, the terribly trivial, the very things that had poisoned his soul and condemned him in the first place. Given such a mania for order, a den of chaos like hell should have been an ideal punishment. Trubshaw, however, just regarded it as a challenge. At first, the demons assigned to torment him laughed diabolically at his aspirations and looked forward greedily to the sweet juices that dripped from crushed hopes. Then they discovered that, while they had been laughing, Trubshaw had rationalized their tormenting schedules for maximum tormenting efficiency, organized a time and motion study for the imps, and, in passing, tidied the underwear drawers of the demon princes and princesses. Lilith, in particular, was mortified. Never one to squander such a remarkably irritating talent, Satan put Trubshaw in charge of admissions. Hell had grown a new, unofficial ring. "I want to see Satan. Now." Cabal's accent was clipped and faintly Teutonic. "I don't have an appointment." By now, Trubshaw had noticed the clothes and was considering possible explanations. "And who might you be? The Archangel Gabriel?" He started the sentence as a joke, but modified his tone halfway through. After all, perhaps it was. "My name is Johannes Cabal. Satan will see me." "So you're nobody special, then?" Cabal gave him a hard look. "It is hardly my place to say. Now open this door." Clothes or no clothes, Trubshaw decided he was on pretty familiar ground after all. He produced a copy of AAAA-342 and pushed it towards Cabal. "You'll need to fill this in, mister," he said, and indulged himself in a chuckle. A horrible noise, like a clockwork crow running down. Cabal gave the form a cursory glance and handed it back. "You misunderstand. I'm not staying. I have business to discuss. Then I'm leaving." There was a muted gasp from the interested onlookers. Trubshaw narrowed his eyes. "Leavin', you reckon? Well, I reckon you're wrong. This is hell, sonny. You can't just come gallivanting in and out like a lady's excuse me. You're dead, and you're staying, and that's the way it's always been, and that's the way it is now. You hear?" Cabal looked at him for a long, long moment, and then he smiled, a cold, horrid rictus that traveled up his face like rising damp. The crowd went very quiet. Cabal leaned close to Trubshaw. "Listen, you pathetic little man, you pathetic dead man, you're making a fundamental error. I'm not dead. Tried it once, didn't like it. Right now, right this instant, as I look into your roomy little gimlet corpse eyes, I am alive. I have come here at great inconvenience, causing considerable disruption in my work, to talk to your seedy, fallen angel of a boss. Now open the door before you regret it." Everybody shifted their attention to Trubshaw. This was going to be good. "No, Mr. Fancy Pants living fella, I ain't going to open the door, and I ain't going to regret it neither. Know why? Because as you spotted so neatly, despite them damn foolish spectacles, I'm dead, and, better yet, I'm on the payroll in these parts, and my job's to make sure people fill in the paperwork. All the paperwork. Elseways, they don't get in, and right now, right this instance, I'm guessing that means you too, you lanky son of a bitch. So, what are you going to do about that, eh?" For his answer, Cabal raised his bag until it was level with the window. Then he carefully opened it, and with a flourish like a stage magician, produced a skull. Trubshaw shied away momentarily, but curiosity overcame him. "What do you got there, you freak?" Cabal's horrible smile deepened. "It's your skull, Trubshaw." Trubshaw blanched, and his eyes widened as he gazed at it. "I liberated it from your old town cemetery. They still talk about your death there, you know. You've quite passed into local folklore." "I always did my duty," said Trubshaw, unable to tear his eyes away from the skull. "Oh yes, your name lives on to this day." "Yeah?" "Indeed." Cabal waited exactly long enough for pride to start swelling agreeably, and Trubshaw's withered excuse for a heart before adding, "It has become a byword for stupidity." Trubshaw blinked, the spell broken. "Oh, yes, well, what do you expect if you get yourself murdered for the sake of a receipt? Children say, 'You're as dumb as Trubshaw' to their little playmates. When their parents refer to someone remarkably stupid, they'll say, 'Well, there goes a proper Trubshaw, and no mistake.' You can get souvenirs and everything. It's quite the cottage industry." He smiled, and something like benevolence slipped into his expression for the first time. It was almost certainly a trick of the light. Trubshaw incandesced with fury. "How the heck you reckon you're gonna get by me now, you goddamn kraut? You really got my goat now, you know. By Jiminy, it'll be a cold day around here before I let you through." Cabal affected a yawn. "Your reputation is well deserved, Arthur Trubshaw. You think I stole this skull as a keepsake? Do you know who I am?" "I don't care who you are, mister. You can take your bag of bones and shove it right up your—" "I am Johannes Cabal, Necromancer." It went very quiet indeed on both sides of the door. Word gets about in the shadow places. Corpses exchange scuttlebutt and gossip, and they know all about the necromancers, the sorcerers who use the dead. They are the boogeyman's boogeymen. Now, Arthur, your choice is clear. You can open the door and let me in, or I can go back to the land of the living in a truly abominable mood, raise you up from this place, put your cankerous soul into something that will do as a body, and then make you wish you were dead all over again. Repeatedly. Cabal pulled down his smoked glass spectacles far enough to show his hard, humorless eyes, gray flecked with blue, that suggested tempered steel and difficult times ahead for any foe, and Trubshaw knew he meant every word. "Which is it to be?" The archdemon Rateth Slaboth had been informed that hell had been invaded, and being a general of the infernal hordes, did he intend to do anything about it? Flying devils were sent to reconnoiter the enemy force, but these quickly returned, and, somewhat crestfallen, reported that the invaders actually consisted of one man with a short temper and sunglasses. Intrigued, the general had decided to take the situation into his own hands, claws, and writhing thorned tentacles. Rateth Slaboth, a stack of shifting non-Euclidean angles topped by a horse's skull and a stylized ancient Grecian helmet, looked down from a great height upon the insolent human. "This is hell," he tried to explain for the third time. "Not a drop-in center. You can't just turn up and say, 'Oh, I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd call by and have a bit of a chinwag with Lord Satan.' It simply isn't done." "No," said the infuriating mortal, "it hasn't been done. There is a difference. May I pass now?" "No, you may not. Satan's is very busy right now. He can't go interrupting his work for every Tom, Dick, and Johannes." He paused for effect, but the human just looked at him with a faint air of what seemed to be pity. "Harry, that is, who turns up demanding audience." "Really?" said Cabal. "I had no idea. I thought this would be an uncommon occurrence. Unique, even. But you seem to imply that it happens all the time." Fair enough. Rateth was just thinking how well he'd handled things when suddenly Cabal pointed directly at him. "I call you a liar," he spat. "I call you duplicitous, mendacious, and thoroughly amateur at both enterprises." "What?" shrieked the demon general. "What? You, a mere mortal, dare to call me thus?" The eldritch angles unfolded. The darkness about him deepened as he rose like some dreadful bird of prey. "I shall destroy you. I shall rend the very flesh from your skeleton, hollow your long bones, and play your funeral lament upon them, for I am Rateth Slabath, Dark General of the infernal hordes, Father of desolation, despoiler of innocence. Look upon me, mortal, and know thy doom." Cabal, he noticed through his rage, looked calm, worryingly so. "Rateth Slabath, eh?" said Cabal. "You wouldn't happen to have started your career as ragtag slyboots, despoiler of milk and entangler of shoelaces, would you?" The effect was electric. Rateth Slabath folded up like an especially large deck of cards in the blink of an eye until he was the same height as Cabal. How did you know that?" he hissed quickly. "I'm a necromancer. You'd be surprised at the sources we dig up. Now then, do I get my audience with Satan, or do I spread rumors about a certain diabolic general's personal history? Which is it to be?" Johannes Cabal, Johannes Cabal. I'm sure I know that name. Lord Satan was actually pleased to have something to distract him from the dull day-to-day administration of the eternally damned and all their massed homogeneity. He'd simply waved an embarrassed and apologetic Rateth Slabath behind his throne and settled down to be amused. The throne was only a throne by dint of its vast scale, otherwise it was simply a big stone chair on the end of a rocky peninsula that extended into the center of a lake of boiling lava. All in all, it was less of an audience and more of a fireside chat. Satan sat comfortably on the unyielding basalt throne, massive and urbane. All things to all people, he looked exactly as you'd imagine. Exactly. He snapped his fingers. "Oh, of course, the Necromancer. Now I recall. You have a contract with me, I think, yes?" He gestured and a demonic secretary appeared in his colossal hand. "Nip over to contracts and pull whatever we've got on a Johannes Cabal, please." The demon made a note on a yellow pad before soaring into the sulphurous air and out of sight. "Yes," replied Cabal. "You have my soul? I'd like it back." Rateth Slabath choked down a laugh. Cabal gave him a milk-curdling look and continued. "I traded my soul over to you some years ago. That was a mistake. Its absence is proving an intolerable burden. Therefore, I should like it back." Rateth Slabath was making idiotic, muffled guffawing noises. Satan quelled him with a glance before addressing Cabal. "Now, you see, Johannes, we have a little bit of a problem there." The secretary landed on Satan's casually opened hand and passed him a roll of parchment before ceasing to exist. Satan unrolled it between his fingers and read it as he spoke. "You see, as a rule of thumb, I don't give souls back. It might set a precedent. These things do. This," he indicated the parchment with the wave of a finger tipped with the nail the size of a very well-manicured tombstone, "is a perfectly standard contract, with the exception of a proviso about you giving up your soul immediately rather than my having to wait until you're dead or after a set period. The Faust clause, that sort of thing. My notes indicate that that was your idea?" "I believed my soul was irrelevant to my researches, so I determined to see what empirical differences there were between the soulful and the soulless, which is to say, me. I was wrong to believe in its irrelevancy. The interference caused by its absence I can no longer countenance. Ratislav leaned forward, interested. Interference? He asked. What sort of interference? Not to be obtuse. Your interference, replied Cabal, pointing at Satan. Satan tapped his chest in surprise. My interference? Constant interruptions, stupid games, interference. You know perfectly well what I mean. For a moment, Satan didn't seem to. Then the great brow cleared and he nodded. Your soullessness must be attracting avatars of mine. Fancy that. Cabal, apparently, did not fancy that at all, especially an irritating little man with a big beard, but it goes further than that. The spiritual vacuum within me is actually causing freak results in my experiments. I can't perform the same procedure twice in full confidence that I will see the same results. I've wasted years trying to locate the problem. Now that I have, I'm here to rectify things. It was the truth, but it wasn't the whole truth. As a scientist, Cabal preferred to work in scientific absolutes wherever possible. The lack of a soul, however, was a quantifiable hindrance inasmuch as it lent his researches a variable percentile of veracity and therefore rendered them 100% useless. This was the scientist Cabal, a good rational reason. Johannes Cabal had no trouble accepting it and expressing it. But there was something else. Something deeper and very, very well hidden. Given Satan's legendary ability to worm out secrets, Cabal knew he could not afford to give him the faintest whiff of this other truth. For he knew that Satan would worry at it like a dog with a rag. Cabal didn't intend to let that happen. It was his business and his alone. So he focused on the scientific and the quantifiable and did not allow even a tremor of this other, this greater truth into his voice. Satan was studying the contract. You sold your soul to gain an insight into necromancy in the first place. If I were to give you your soul back, I would want that in return. That would invalidate the whole scheme, perhaps? I need that knowledge, said Cabal. This is non-negotiable. What? What? Sorry, got distracted. Satan smiled. That's that then. You can't eat your cake and have it too, Johannes. Sorry and all that. For a long minute, Cabal glared at Satan. Satan continued to smile, twiddled his thumbs, and awaited developments. He wasn't disappointed. Cabal paused. It was as if he were dealing with an alien concept. He coughed. I'll make you a wager. He stopped, uncertain if he'd used the right term. I believe that you have a reputation for accepting wagers. I should like to make one. What is happening? I should like to make one. What is happening? Oh, God. I just saw a window pop up. I didn't know what was happening.
I don't know. I was just informed I was invited to join this.
Okay.
I'm just having good times with stories.
Satan waited, but there was no further clarification. Finally, he leaned forward and said, Fine. Wagers? Yes, that's good. I like them. What's your wager? Cabal was clearly stumped. Not something you've ever done before, Never mind. Shall I suggest one? He allowed Cabal's continued silence to become slightly embarrassing before taking it for assent. Now, as I've already said, I can't start giving souls back willy-nilly or else I'll never hear the end of it. There'd be a queue from here to Tartarus of ne'er-do-wells whinging and whining and wringing their hands, and I get enough of that at the best of times. So you must appreciate that it can't be anything easy. Pour décourager les autres. You follow me so far? I understand. Excellent. So what I propose is that you must replace your soul in my little collection. You just want another soul? 100 times over. 100? The number staggered Cabal. 100? What do you take me for, a mass murderer? You're not listening, Johannes. I want souls, not carcasses, not dead, damned. Signed, sealed, and delivered. I'll provide the forms, and the signatures don't even have to be in blood. Although it would be nice if somebody made the effort now and again. Cabal looked at the floor, thinking deeply. After a minute's consideration, he grudgingly said, I suppose it may be possible. And you've got a year to do it in. Behind his glasses, Cabal's eyes narrowed. Are you insane? A year? It can't be done. Oh, come now, Johannes. A bit of that silver tongue of yours, and people won't be able to sign up for damnation fast enough. Those flashing social skills that you've spent so long honing to a fine edge. Sarcasm ill becomes you, said Cabal. I came here in expectation of dealing with a mature individual. Instead, all I get is petty slights and pointless whimsy. Good day. I suppose I am rather whimsical these days. I'm sorry, Johannes. I didn't mean to bruise your pride. Really, I didn't, said Satan with an expression that indicated that he didn't give a toss for Cabal's pride one way or the other. I like you. It takes a lot of courage to come down here when you really don't need to. Yet, I don't want you to go away and huff and think that I didn't give you a fair hearing. And in fact, I'll even help you get your 100 souls. It's difficult for a horse's skull to raise an eyebrow, but one of Vratislavat's gaping eye sockets may have widened slightly. Slabath, said Satan, do you still have that jumble box handy? And as the general quickly searched through his interdimensional pockets, Satan leaned down and said confidentially, the general and I were just having a bit of a spring clean. You'd be surprised at how much rubbish builds up. And then, before you know it, it has to be sorted out again. No rest for the wicked. Vratislavat produced a battered tea chest from somewhere and passed it to his master. Satan went through it, sighing. No, no, no. Why do we ever give half of this nonsense room? No, no. Then he pulled a bundle of files from the box and studied the label on the first. Dear me, I'd forgotten all about these. One of these would be ideal. What are they? Asked Cabal, interested despite himself. Do you enjoy going to fairs, Johannes? No. Then these will be ideal. They're fairs. Carnivals, amusement parks, and the like. I've had a hand in quite a few of those over the years. Absolutely splendid they are. People looking for a good time, drop their guard, you see, then in you dart and you've got 'em. Splendid. Not so popular these days, unfortunately, but you can't beat them for style. He had opened the first file and was reading the notes inside. Cougar and Dark's Carnival, regrettably no, that one's been wound up. He dropped it back into the box and studied the next. Brown's Carnival, Dr. Brown of world renown. Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to him? He read a little further. Oh dear, how unpleasant. You're doing a very poor job of engaging my enthusiasm, said Cabal. Satan wasn't listening. He was already on to the next file. Dr. Diablo's Torture Garden, he smiled, evidently proud. Terrific success. We're franchising that. This seemed like a positive development to Cabal. So, will I... No, said Satan. You will not. That would be far too easy. This is meant to represent a challenge, Johannes, not a cakewalk. He dropped the file back into the box. This left him with one last set of papers. He took the top sheet and read out loud. Pre-production schedule Carnival of Discord project. He flicked through some other sheets. Proposed by Leviathan, seconded by Balberuth? That's a novelty, eh, Slabath? First time he's ever agreed to anything. Oh, here's why. Function to tempt to contentiousness, to blasphemy, argumentation, and murder. Typical. Only Balberuth would think that people want to go to a carnival to have a good bicker, spit on a Bible, and then kill each other. No wonder it got shelved. Still, the rest of the proposal has Leviathan's paw prints all over it. Very professional indeed. With the right man at the helm, this could be a regular little soul stealer. He looked down at Cabal. What do you think, Johannes? Do you think you could be the right man? I am not notably light-hearted, Cabal started. Gosh, really? Said Satan with total innocence. I have no grasp of what is involved in this carnival business, and I'm hardly gregarious. Frankly, I don't think your challenge is entirely fair. There was a long silence for a moment. Satan's periods of good nature, in common with many managerial types, lasted precisely up until the moment he was challenged. He scowled monstrously, the smile falling from his face like a greased pig off a church roof. Quickly, over a period of seconds, the lava lake cooled. The glowing red rock turned dirty gray and then black. It was getting distinctly colder. Frost started to appear on the stone walls. "Not entirely fair?" repeated Satan, all trace of jovial hail fellow well met gone. "Not entirely fair?" His voice became that of the inferno, a rushing, booming howl of icy evil that flew around the great cavern, as swift and cold as the Wendigo on the skates. "I am Satan, also called Lucifer the Light-Bearer." Cabal winced. What was it about devils that they always had to give you their whole family history? "I was cast down from the presence of God himself into this dark, sulphurous pit and condemned to spend eternity here." "Have you tried saying sorry?" interrupted Cabal. "No, I haven't. I was sent down for a sin of pride. It rather undermines my position if I say sorry." "I have my pride too, yet you insist on sending me off on a ridiculous errand, posing as some sort of showman. Where's the justice in that?" Satan leaned back in his throne, and his voice dropped to the low tone of somebody who is about to abort an interview. "Look up Satan and a thesaurus at some point, mortal. You'll find terms like elemental evil, wickedness incarnate, and the begetter of sins. If you find nice chap, good bloke, and the embodiment of fairness, then I would suggest you buy a new one. Do you accept the deal?" Cabal considered. 100 souls? Yes. 1 year, until the midnight of next Walpurgisnacht? Satan groaned. "Oh, it's not Walpurgisnacht, is it? I knew I'd forgotten something. I'm supposed to be abroad cavorting with witches." He curled his lip truculently. "I really can't be bothered this year. I'll let the avatars deal with it. So, you were saying, oh yes, next, Walpurgisnacht, midnight, yes. I get the carnival to help me." "Just so. What if I fail?" "I don't care very much. I suppose I could..." He looked about for inspiration. "Take your life. That seems fair enough by my standards." Cabal looked dubious. "It's the only deal you're going to get, Johannes Cabal. Take it or leave it." The frost was gently melting from the frozen lake as it started to warm up again. Cabal looked around, questing for his decision. If he didn't take the wager, his researches were useless. Worse yet, if by some fluke he did succeed in them despite the lack of a soul, they would be pointless. If he took the wager and failed, then he would end up in this fatuous medieval monk's idea of eternal torment. He clicked his tongue. "No choice at all, then." He nodded. "I accept your offer." He had no concept of why people might want to waste their time and money at a carnival when they could be doing something important, but he was sure that as soon as he applied himself, he might be able to think down to that level. "Good, splendid." Satan tossed the large file at Cabal, who avoided it, concussing him only with difficulty. "There's your carnival. There's your budget." He squeezed his hand shut until his nails drove into the flesh. A single drop of black blood fell to the floor and formed into a glistening, gelid sphere about the size of a medicine ball. "And there's your year." He snapped the fingers of his other hand, and an hourglass appeared. He turned it and placed it in front of Cabal. "Enjoy it, in good health. Now shoot, you bore me." "Hold on," said Cabal, uncertainty turning to suspicion. He pointed at the sphere. "What do you mean, budget?" "The Carnival of Discord never became operational. All the materials were allocated, but it was never manned. It's all in the file. That ball of blood is my diabolical influence and power." Every time you call upon it, the ball will diminish. Use it wisely, Johannes Cabal. Now, he spoke with finality, this audience is at an end. He snapped his fingers again, and abruptly, Cabal was elsewhere. I'm gonna unplug this. I can't hear you with the microphone in. It takes up all the audio. I can't hear your words. You what? Ah! My screen's all crazy. That was the end of chapter 1, everybody. Oh. Can you hear me okay with the...
Yeah.
Hi, Audra. Why am I not in school? It's 9 o'clock at night. How long do you think school goes on, my guy?
Well, for me, technically, it always ends. It's never over because I'm in the dorms.
Yeah, technically, you're always.
I'm doing my best.
Johannes Cabal the Necromancer. The book is called Johannes Cabal and the Necromancer. How are you all liking it?
You know I love this book, so you know my answer.
I know Dinky likes it. But I'm interested in people who have never heard it before. That was the first chapter, by the way. Made it all the way through chapter 1. You like it? Awesome. And for anybody, oh, hi, Dad. Oops. Hi. Yes, make Nody more fan art.
What?
You know who deserves more fan art? Nody.
No, I'm gonna fight. You wanna know who deserves more fan art? Toshi. You're up for me, so I hope I'm pointing the right way.
Anyway, yeah, okay, to answer your question, I'm gonna put the recording of this live on the YouTube channel. YouTube is also Anxious Undertaker, for everyone asking. Also, Johannes Cabal the Necromancer is the name of the book. I will make a recap tomorrow, and it's going to have the information for the book, so if you want to go buy it, since I know a lot of people are like, I gotta go read it now, you can go get it if you like it. And I highly recommend it, obviously, because it's my favorite book, but you all knew that. If you were here from the beginning. Where did my coffee go? I've lost the coffee. Oh no.
Oh God.
Wait, I found it. I put it right behind them.
I was about to say, oh God.
Back there. Oh, I'm definitely going to keep recording chapters. I'm going to go live every Tuesday until we finish the book. If you want to do that, if you like the book, if you're enjoying it, I'm going to keep recording it. I just thought we could stop, chat for a little bit. I get some coffee in me. I found the coffee, okay? Insomniac, I found it. And we'll take a break, discuss it, see how everybody likes it, what you all think. Kind of catch my breath a little bit, get some liquid in me. Yeah, every Tuesday. Well, I'm glad you like it. I am okay today. How are you? Are you guys okay? Because
I'm Gucci.
You what?
I'm Gucci.
Good, Gucci. Yeah, people in the beginning were like, "Where's Danky? Where's Danky?" I was like, "I don't know. This is story time. I don't know."
I full on promoted you. I just said I was gonna be vibing, like I was gonna be watching, and that they should join me in watching.
Yeah.
And now here I am. I've been caught in 4K of how I've been watching. I made like a nest.
Hey, that's okay. It's bedtime, so
yeah, no, you get comfy.
You can put them to sleep. So now I'm
like
testing that.
17 blankets. It's great.
Oh, I love Stephen King, Tiffany. I love Stephen King. So if y'all want a Stephen King book after this, gang, I'm here for it. I just said, gang, I'm becoming you, Danky son of a. Oh.
It's fine. I'm getting addicted to coffee. I'm becoming you.
The next time I unironically say gang again, I'm gonna lose my whole mind.
I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna love every moment of it. It's gonna be amazing. I keep pulling blankets out of everywhere.
Well, I'm glad you all are comfy. I'm glad you guys seem to be liking it. Rose Red, I used to have the Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, the spinoff one to that, where it was they had like the diary, but I had the edited one because at that point you literally could not get the ones with all the graphic stuff in it. You had to go online. It sent you to a link to confirm your age before you could read the scary parts. And when I say the scary parts, I don't even mean the horror parts. I mean like the sexual assault parts. It was a really rough book. We could do a Stephen King one that isn't that I prefer to not read anything that has like graphic sexual content on this channel. Please no. So like no Gerald game, nothing like that. We're not doing that.
No Acheron.
We're definitely not doing that. I just finished that. I just finished it and I'm like, whoa, this was a lot.
Wait, you're done?
Yeah, I gotta give it back to you now. Along with your Tupperware because I finished your curry. Dinky made me curry, everybody. It was good. I liked it. I like the curry. I can't say the same about the book. The book was a little but you know.
That's fair. Listen, I didn't know if it was going to be your cup of coffee, so I figured I'd give it a shot. I have multiple favorites, but that was just one of the genres. My absolute favorite fun little fact is The Outsiders. Always has been.
Well, my favorite series is this one, the one that we're reading. It's 5 books long, which I will be amazed if we can read all 5. But there's also a bunch of short stories that were published that you almost can't even find anymore. I had to basically go on a scavenger hunt for them. So if you'd like, I could also read those since they would prove kind of difficult to come by. I had to purchase one that was only included as part of a horror anthology in like 2012. Bought the entire anthology, only read that one story. There's another one that was only published in a horror zine. Does anybody even remember what zines are? Because it's terrible. It's old. And so I can do those if you all want to.
Also,
oh, great. Yeah, get into cosplay. Do it with us. I hope you have a fun time. I hope you like it. You member, dad members.
Also, I want to know. I don't know if you noticed, but you've had an extra special guest chilling with me as you were reading, and he has absolutely loved it.
It would be oh god, it gave him off screen. No, I thought it was just like some sort of flesh colored thing because it's really small.
He never leaves.
Thank you, Lady Aoife. Yeah, I feel old. A little old there, but it's fine. Also, Pond is here. She's on the altar right behind the ring light, and she's making me very nervous.
Tell Pond I love her.
Yeah, Pond. Dinky says he loves you. Pond. Yeah, Dinky says he loves you.
Yes, I love that cat.
She turns around. She doesn't care. Oh, thank you for the roses.
Alice is currently chilling in the living room.
This is not really a horror book. There's not a whole lot of horror. There are a lot of occult themes, and it's kind of a fantasy slash kind of steampunky, especially in the second.
Sci-fi-ish.
Yeah, kind of. I wouldn't say sci-fi, but it's more like steampunk. In the second,
it would be in that genre at Barnes and Noble.
When the big airship, anyway. But it's mostly just fantasy with some like occult elements to it. Mostly it's a lot of dry humor. The Skeleton Creek series, I have not. Is it like a children? Is that why you keep saying that? Look, don't worry about it. I still read children's books sometimes, so they're comforting.
All I'm saying is Warriors, I will reread that any day of my life.
Someone was just saying about the Warrior Cats books too.
Who's a Warriors fan? Who's my bestie?
The YouTube is under my handle. It's the same as TikTok. So if you go find Anxious Undertaker, this live will be up tomorrow, so you can listen to it in its entirety if you want to do that. And also, I'm going to be posting a recap on my TikTok as well, so that you can kind of get the short version if you don't have enough time to listen to the entire thing. I get that the live is kind of long. But yeah. But I think that we can do another chapter if you guys want. You ready to go? Can you hear me okay? Should I use the microphone? Should I not use the microphone? I'm still experimenting here.
I mean, it was really well done with the microphone.
Can you hear me better like this or with the microphone? Should I plug it back in?
It was a healthy middle. Whenever you unplugged it, there was a moment where I could not hear a single thing. I thought I may have been Bakugo and gone deaf. Don't tell Bakugo I said that.
I don't talk to Bakugo.
I'm talking to them.
Bakugo?
I am. I know you are.
Is to make him mad.
I'm talking to everyone else. I don't wish to be unalive. I just survived a bad training accident from Bakugo. Yeah, microphone.
All right, I'm gonna plug this microphone back in, but once I do, I won't be able to hear you anymore. So better get whatever it is you have to say out now.
Wait, you can't hear me when the microphone's on?
When I plug it in, it also receives it as audio output, so I can't hear anything that you say.
Cool. Good to know. Very important information to know.
Yep, and I'm gonna go ahead and plug that in, so you're not gonna be able to talk to me anymore. So bye.
Oh, what a shame. So let's just talk about Shinsou, right?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Give a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yeah, no.
Cool. Excellent. Okay.
Let's just talk about Shinsou.
We're going to go through chapter 2. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm not talking to you.
Okay. I was like, your mouth is still moving. And if you expect me to be able to hear you, I can't.
I'm talking to them.
All right. Chapter 2, in which Cabal practices his map reading and meets an old acquaintance. The flatlands rolled as far as the eye could see in any direction, remarkably flat, remarkably boring, and not nearly high enough above sea level for comfort. The fields all looked like marshes waiting to happen. In some cases, the wait was over. Dilapidated wooden fences made a poor job of delineating one unhealthy-looking patch of land from the next. Stone walls didn't last here. They sank. In 3 directions, it was hard to see where the gray land merged into the gray sky, and in the 4th, a long earthwork ran until it faded into the distance. A dreary, depressing place, and Cabal was very surprised suddenly to be in the middle of it. He spent an undignified few moments trying to get over the fact that he was no longer in hell, wheeling on the spot like somebody who had walked into the wrong toilets. While he finally deduced that he had been unceremoniously translocated, he marked the revelation with a filthy curse in a language that had been dead 8,000 years, so managing to be amazingly erudite and amazingly uncouth in the selfsame instant. Cabal put down his Gladstone bag, beat the last few whiffs of sulphurous smoke out of his clothes with his hat, and opened the file. Several sheets down, he found a map of the area that he withdrew before reclosing the file. He took a moment to orientate himself. Without a compass or a visible sun to work with, a map of the flatlands tended to be like one of those pictures which look like something completely different when you turn them upside down. In this case, it looked really rather similar no matter which way you turned it. He found a few lanes that ran straight until it seemed that whoever built them had realized there was no point in pretending that anyone was ever going to travel them. These lanes had been hastily finished with odd little curlicues, as if that had been the intention all along, only the earthwork stood out in the tedious landscape, but unfortunately, it didn't seem to be on the map. Finally, After some exasperated and faintly histrionic sighing, Cabal noticed a faint dotted line on the map labeled Route of Proposed Spur Line. The red cross that he assumed was his destination lay on the line, but the line had been so slight he simply hadn't seen it. That must be it, he concluded. It was an old map, and the spur line had been built. The earthwork was a raised railway bed. Simple. Pleased with his deduction, he turned to pick up his bag and found that he was no longer alone. The two men whom he'd caught in a pantomime of stealth were of a disreputable appearance. There was a sense that if you opened an illustrated dictionary and looked up disreputable, there would be a picture of one or the other of them, possibly both. After all, if there was some minor detail of reprehensible untrustworthiness that couldn't be found in one of them, it was certain to be present in his partner. One was short and greasy. The other was taller and looked like his mother had been scared quite badly, by a scabby vulture. They grinned, and Cabal almost sighed with the pathetic predictability of it all. Oh well, best to get it over with. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" he said, with no hint of irony. He called us gentlemen, Dennis. Did you hear him?" said the short one. "Huh, gentlemen, huh," answered the tall one, Dennis, who seemed to be the straight man. "That's very polite, isn't it? Very polite indeed. Spoke just like a gentleman. Gentlemen, yes, Denzel, very polite." Dennis nodded and showed the poor state of his dentition. Cabal was getting irritated. He was on a tight schedule and just wished they'd hurried up and mug him. "Well," said Denzel, the brains of the operation, "we was wondering if you'd paid the toll, see?" "Of course," said Cabal, who spoke bare-faced liar like a native when the situation called for it. "I paid at the toll gate." Dennis and Denzel looked nonplussed. They'd spent weeks practicing this criminal act. Diagrams on blackboards, little dioramas with figures representing them and their potential victim, a tin Sioux Indian, a small bear with a pair of cymbals, and a llama, respectively. Somehow, this particular eventuality had never been covered. "There ain't be no toll gate," muttered Denzel. "No? Then there can't be any toll," said Cabal with an easy irrationality that ran against the grain of his brutally rational mind. He knew he'd regret it in the morning, but he just wanted to get this whole situation over and done with as quickly as possible. Dennis was shaking his head slowly as he ran through the contingency plans. They'd never made any, so it didn't take very long. They had considered making some, but then they'd also considered getting drunk at the same time. And if they had ever actually come up with a contingency plan, and there is no evidence that they did, they had forgotten it. Again, somewhere around the 10th pint. It had been no great loss. They had never needed a plan B before. Indeed, they had never needed a plan A before, dependent as it was upon actually finding somebody to rob amongst the dreary and seldom traveled lanes of the flatlands. With the unexpected discovery of an actual viable victim, the gaping holes in the scheme were quickly becoming apparent. Dennis shook his head, but when his cognitive process half-heartedly kicked in, the sensation of thinking was like worms in a jam jar, and he wished it would stop. Meanwhile, the incisive wit of Denzel had come to the rescue. "I don't care if there ain't been no toll, we were robbing you anyway." He drew his short, rusty blade and elbowed Dennis until he drew his. Now they were on solid ground. They'd killed before and, by some miracle, had gotten away with it. And if this thin streak of piss didn't stump up the cash right this minute, they'd be taking their chances with the gallows again, and the devil could take the consequences. Cabal shrugged. "I don't have any money," he said truthfully. Denzel pointed at the bag. "What's in there, then?" There comes a time when the thin skein of possibilities that suspends us above the unknown stretches and tears and places. And for Dennis and Denzel, that moment was now. The skein grew thinner and more transparent as Cabal reached down and picked up his bag. "Nothing that you could want. I'm a scientist. This contains my equipment." "A scientist," moaned Dennis. He put his hand on Denzel's shoulder. He won't have no money. Come on, Denzel, let's go. The skein thickened and started to knit itself back. Denzel, however, had decided that he really didn't like Cabal. Even if Cabal had nothing they wanted, Denzel was damn sure that he was going to take it anyway. He angrily shook Dennis's hand from his shoulder. No. I want whatever you got, you milk-faced bugger. Open the bloody bag before I cut you. The skein grew thin as a bubble, tight as a drum skin. Cabal pursed his lips and opened the bag. The skein tore from side to side, and although Dennis and Denzel hadn't been fully acquainted with the facts yet, they were doomed men. Cabal reached in and drew out a human skull. Denzel and Dennis took a step back. Cabal wondered for a moment how he was going to explain concisely why he was carrying a bank clerk's skull, and decided not to. This is a memento mori, he said instead. He could see they were going to say it. No, it was a skull. So he quickly added, a reminder of mortality, that we are all clay, and that we all die. This last was said pointedly, but the pair of thieves were too busy gawping at the skull to be paying any attention to the nuances. He replaced the skull and took out a small leather folder. He flipped it open to reveal gleaming scalpels and probes. These are my surgical instruments. You're a doctor, then? Asked Denzel, trying to guess how much the instruments might be worth. Cabal put them away again. Not really. These, he continued as he produced a bag about the size of a binocular case, padded inside and out, are vials containing test batch 247. He worked the catch with his thumb and opened it to show the heads of several test tubes, each sealed with wax, into which the imaginative might have thought they saw a curious symbol worked. Denzel could see that they weren't going to be retiring after this job. What's that worth then? Cabal closed the case and put it away. If you don't know how to use them, nothing at all. And finally, he said, rummaging deep in the Gladstone, this is a Webley 577. Cabal drew the biggest handgun either Denzel or Dennis had ever seen in his life. Dennis cheered up. Well, that's got to be worth something, eh? Eh, Denzel? He turned around to see Denzel running as fast as his fat little legs could carry him. Somewhere, deep in the reptilian part of his brain, Dennis got the feeling that he might be in trouble. The bullet that smashed through his back did nothing to diminish this. Even as Dennis was falling, his minimal amounts of brain activity flickered down to nothing. Cabal was carefully leveling the revolver at Denzel's diminishing form. The first shot threw up stone fragments close by his heels. Cabal raised his aim a little and tried again. Denzel went down like he'd been poleaxed. It took some time to find a spot where he could climb through the straggling and unhealthy hedgerow that grew alongside the earthwork, and another few minutes of climbing through brambles to reach the top. As he'd surmised, this was indeed the proposed spur line mentioned on the map. The dilapidated state of the line made him wonder how old the map was. The rails were heavy with undisturbed rust. The sleepers were rotting under molds and mushrooms. Weeds and young trees grew waist-high along the full length of the track, as far as he could see. He consulted the map again. From his vantage point, he could finally make out a few of what might, locally at least, be called landmarks, ponds, marshes, and forks in the roads. He turned the map, though, through a few angles until he could work out where he was, reorientated himself facing north, and then looked directly along the line where the map carried an enigmatic X. The vegetation seemed far more mature there, a dense copse of trees that straddled the line and spread down each embankment. That, he hoped, must be it. He set off towards the trees with determination, but after a few steps he was halted by the sound of something falling heavily on the track behind him. He turned and snapped, "Do keep up! We don't have all day!" Denzel blinked slowly at him and then down at Dennis, who was trying to get up, but his foot had caught under a rotten sleeper. It took a moment for Denzel to realize that he might help by kicking Dennis's heel repeatedly until it came loose. He took slow, careful aim, swung his leg with great force, missed, and ended up on his back. He blinked uncomprehendingly at the gray sky. It seemed much more difficult to get things done now that he was dead. Cabal pulled a little black book from his pocket, drew a pencil from its spine, and made a note. Batch 247 seemed to act quickly, but it certainly didn't help coordination in any practical sense. With hindsight, perhaps he should have made some effort to take their souls on a more formal basis as the first donors of the 100. That he hadn't was partially down to not being quite sure how one actually sets about taking souls on a more formal basis, but mainly because they had peeved him. "I'll be over there," he pointed towards the trees and put his notebook away. "Catch up when you're able." That, he thought ruefully, might take some time. As Cabal got closer to the trees, he began to see how long the copse was, perhaps a quarter of a mile. Given the stunted state of everything else in sight, that was suspicious in itself. Nothing else seemed likely to produce much more than toothpicks, while these trees were great twisted brutes that stood on the landscape as if painted in black ink. Leafless branches clutched at the sky, and the convulsed bark of the trunks looked to a fanciful mind like human faces twisted in torment. "This," he said quietly, "must be the place. It's so melodramatic." In a nearby tree that might have been an elm before being regularly watered with LSD, a carrion crow sat and regarded Cabal keenly. It tilted its head and cawed mockingly at Cabal. Then it saw Dennis and Denzel stumbling along the track 100 yards behind him and, full of hope and appetite, flew to investigate them. Cabal passed the tortured elm, stepped over the roots of a lunatic's vision of witch hazel, and came face to face with the monster. Cabal exhaled sharply, and his always pale complexion turned a ugly gray for a second, until he brought himself under control. He didn't move, tried not to breathe, tried not to let the great black monster know he was alive. Then he took a deep, shuddering breath, stepped forward, and placed his hand upon its face. He had to step up on the cowcatcher to reach, though. It was the most astounding piece of engineering he thought he'd ever seen, and he'd seen a few. A massive locomotive that even here, dead and neglected, its firebox long cold, demanded and received unthinking respect. It bore some affectations of the Old West. The cowcatcher, the fluted smokestack, but the body seemed more old world, aggressively squared and not afraid to shunt every carriage ever built from here to hell. Perhaps it was capable of that. Cabal nodded approvingly. He might not be an engineer by trade, but he knew solid workmanship when he saw it. Apparently, so did all nearby creatures. Despite any number of tempting perches for local and continent birds, the only dirt on it was the coating of a curious black rust that came off on his fingers like very coarse soot. Cabal sniffed at it cautiously and was instantly put in mind of energetic evenings down in the cellar, sawing up the evidence and putting it in the furnace before the police arrived. He pushed his tinted spectacles up his nose and blinked thoughtfully behind them. What exactly did this thing run on? He hoped it was wood or coal. It would be much more convenient. A commotion made him turn. The crow had settled on Denzel's head and was trying to get a meal out of him, specifically out of his eye socket. The hapless dead man had his head down and his arms outstretched and was running a clumsy circle in an effort to dislodge the bird. It wasn't working. The crow seemed to have stapled itself in place. And Dennis wasn't helping things by trying to hit the bird with a sickly sapling he'd torn up. Blows rained down on Denzel's back, not even remotely close to the target, and soil from the roots flew everywhere. "Stop that!" barked Cabal. Both Walking Dead and Bird stopped that. Dennis tried to hide the tree behind his back. You there, crow, come here. With utmost reluctance, the crow launched itself from Denzel, swooped low until it was almost touching the ground, then swept back up to head height, slalomed nonchalantly through the intervening trees, and landed on Cabal's shoulder. Cabal turned on his heel and started to walk down past the huge locomotive and towards the train of carriages and cars linked up behind it. You'll be fed shortly, bird, so no further trouble, yes? The crow blinked. Oh, by the by, if you ever shit on my shoulder, you'll be in a taxidermist window so fast as to beggar belief. Understood? Cronk, said the crow, which may have meant, yes, master. It could equally well have meant, you'll have to catch me first, bugger lugs. Either way, it kept its sphincter tight. Cabal walked slowly along the train. There were a few carriages, several flat cars stacked with once brightly painted boards, and towards the back, a good number of sealed boxcars. He arrived at the first of them and stopped by the large sliding door that ran for a quarter of its length. He was just considering how to get in when it slid open of its own accord with a hideous shrieking of rusty metal. Oh, said Cabal, unimpressed. It's you. The little old man finished dogging the door open and looked down. Aye, it's me, young Cabal. You've taken your time. Cabal placed a foot on a metal rung, gripped the rail by the door edge, and pulled himself up. The crow flapped off his shoulder and landed on a nearby stanchion. It settled down to practice looking at things beadily. You're lucky I'm here at all. The map was next to useless, Cabal said as he brushed off his hands and shoulder where the doorframe had touched him. He looked at the man. I was hoping Satan might send someone else rather than you, you contrary old bastard. The man laughed. Actually, he cackled. Oh, we go way back, Johannes. His worshipfulness thought you might like a familiar face. Cabal was looking around the gloomy car. Only if I thought blowing a hole in it would make any difference, he replied it offhandedly. The little old man was not, in any real sense, little or a man. He was certainly, however, very old. He was an embodiment of an archetype, the old codger with the flat cap and the gray beard. He cackled, he rolled his own foul-smelling cigarettes, and when on form, he could be relied on to dribble. He was exactly the sort of person that makes a youth fashionable. He was also one of Satan's numerous avatars, fragments of his personalities and random thoughts that had taken form in the mortal realm. They allowed him to maintain a steady background hum of elemental evil in the world, while he concentrated on more important things down in hell. His cribbage game, for example. Until recent events, the little old man had been Cabal's only contact with Satan. This was the entity that he'd sold his soul to years before, and the entity that had invalidated more lines of research with his willful interference than Cabal cared to remember. The little old man sat on a crate and watched Cabal investigate the dark corners. Oh, Johannes, I'm hurt, he said cheerfully. After all we've been through. Cabal, his cursory examination of the boxcar completed, walked back to him. All we've been through? All you've put me through, surely. If you hadn't bought my soul and then been such a pervasive nuisance ever since, none of this, he made a gesture that encompassed the whole train, would have been necessary. The little old man shrugged. I was only doing my job. You can't expect altruism from one of Satan's little helpers. Cabal sighed. Look, I'd really like to be able to say that I'm delighted that you could make it, and it's a real tonic to see you, but I'd be lying. I know. So, do you think we might cut along with a little more alacrity, all the quicker to get you out of my sight? I am, after all, on a rather tight schedule. Schedule, said the little old man, holding up a finger. I'm glad you reminded me you'll be needing this. He reached into his grubby old coat and produced an hourglass, a little over a foot in height. Instead of sand, however, it seemed to be filled with an incredibly fine powder. Tiny motes made their way from the upper chamber into the narrow neck and cascaded downwards. Despite the steady stream, the floor of the bottom chamber barely had a dusting upon it. This shows you how much time you've got left. You know how one works, don't you? Cabal gave him a look. Course you do, clever lad like you, anyway. When all the grains have fallen from top to bottom, time's up. Simple. Oh, one thing to remember, this isn't the actual glass that my better part has down in the hot place. It's a sort of repeater relay thing. You can do what you like to this one, but it doesn't affect the time you've got left. See? He turned the glass and the motes fell upward regardless. The little old man held it at a different angle, but nothing made any difference. Time was still passing and the grains carried on falling in a steady gravity-boggling stream. Neat, eh? Goes down bomb at parties, I can tell you. Really, said Cabal as he took the glass. I'll have to hold a soiree just to impress my friends. You haven't got any friends, and I'm not holding a soiree either. You have a problem with sarcasm, don't you? Now, do you have anything else fascinating to impart, or can I kick your wrinkly carcass down the embankment, as I so dearly wish? The little old man huffed. You're not nice. You're... Cabal searched for the right word. Founder has given me the task of sending 100 souls to eternal torment. To be quite frank, I don't think my name is ever going to become a byword for popularity. You're right there. The little old man searched inside his capaciously shapeless coat and finally found a thin file box as broad and wide as foolscap by an inch deep. He undid the thin black tape ribbon sealing it, took off the lid, and showed the contents to Cabal. It was a pack of forms printed on some sort of faintly yellow parchment. Cabal leaned forward and read the top line. Voluntary damnation form? To be filled in by the damnee. EAGH-1? He straightened up. I see the hand of Arthur Trubshaw at work here. You're not wrong, replied the little old man as he tied the package up again. 100 forms to be handed in fully completed in a little less than a year's time. Feeling up to it, Johannes? He passed over the box. Cabal hefted it and looked around. I'm not sure. I accepted this challenge on the understanding that I would have the Carnival of Discord on my side. As yet, all I seem to have been given is a rolling junk shop. Tell Satan, no carnival, no deal. No carnival, no carnival, this is it. Wagons roll, greatest show on earth. Use your imagination, why don't you? Imagination? I'd have to be hallucinating before I could ever believe this shambles is the greatest show on earth. The little old man got up from the crate and walked over to the back wall, shaking his head and muttering about young folk today. Leaning against the wall was a stack of broad wooden boards half covered by a tarpaulin. This he whipped off in possibly the weakest theatrical flourish Cabal had ever seen, to reveal the boards were signs. Battered and peeling, but signs nonetheless. Here you go, here are your sideshows, see? From the mysterious East. The enigmatic Cleopatra, 3,000 years in the tomb, yet still the most beautiful woman in the world. Good, eh? What's this one? Marvel at the Bat-Faced Boy, direct from the darkest jungle. Ooh, scary stuff, isn't it? The sheer preponderance of exclamation points is terrifying in itself. That's just traditional. Yes, but the log-headed girl, that can't be right. He probed at the flaking paint. Surely it should say dog-headed girl. Oh, no, it does say log-headed. That'll pull the crowds. He nodded confidently at Cabal. Cabal had lost patience with the little old man's drivel. He stood by the open door, watching Dennis and Denzel's painfully slow progress along the trackside with the mildest interest possible. Oh, yes, he said over his shoulder. They'll come from miles around for this. Roll up, see the world's largest collection of antediluvian signage. Gasp at the decrepitude. Be astounded by the grammar. A fascinating show rivaled only by the lint in your navel. I'll have to fight them off with a stick. The little old man narrowed his eyes and thought carefully. That's sarcasm, is it? Cabal looked at the flatlands again. He really didn't care anymore. This whole thing was another of Satan's dim-witted jokes. He had no idea why he bothered. Yes, he replied. That's sarcasm. He turned and walked over to the stack of signs. This is a pointless enterprise without personnel. I don't have any. Any sound made then turned to the door. Dennis had reached it and was just contemplating how best to climb up when Denzel, who'd got the rhythm of walking worked out to his satisfaction, but hadn't yet appreciated the myriad complications involved with stopping, walked into him. They both fell out of sight, and after a moment there was the sound of a slow and considered fight. Well, none worth speaking of, Cabal corrected himself. If I'm not even to be provided with people to try and make something of this mess, then you might as well have these forms back now. The little old man cackled. How can you say that, Johannes? Don't you like a challenge? Where's your sense of adventure? Easily outweighed by my sense of being made a fool of. But you have been provided with people, sort of. Look around you. Cabal looked around him. He was still alone, in a grimy dump of a boxcar, with the only dubious company of the little old man. I am looking, and all I am seeing, however, are candidates for a landfill. What are you getting at? The little old man went to the center of the car and swept his arms around to encompass all that was lying about the place. As a dramatic gesture, it might have been at home in a musical comedy, light musical comedy. Here are your people all around you. He reached into a box and pulled out a bone that Cabal immediately recognized as a human femur. Here are your riggers. He dropped it and plucked a ball of hair from a sack. Your barkers? He put his hand on what Cabal had assumed were rolls of cloth leaning in the corner. Your concession stand holders? Your whole carnival is here. Just use a little... He tapped his temple. Imagination. Cabal walked over to inspect a roll. What do you mean? He looked closely at the material and belatedly realized what it was. This, he said dryly, is human skin. There was no reply. He looked around, but the little old man had vanished. Marvelous, Cabal thought. I don't even get an instruction book. He took a small black object from his pocket and squeezed a button on its casing. A wicked-looking blade flicked out. He unrolled some of the cloth from the dark roll and cut a long strip from it. Then he got a small ball of hair from the sack, a rag from a barrel, and finally, the femur. He carefully tied the hair to the bone using the piece of cloth. A rag, a bone, and a hank of hair, he intoned quietly as he wrapped the whole thing in the strip of skin. He regarded the finished object with a scornful shake of the head. I hate this sort of thing. He looked for some clear floor. I invoke thee. So saying, he lobbed the untidy mess into the clearing. Down in hell, a black ball of blood diminished very slightly in size. The mess came apart long before it reached the floor with more violence than might be regarded as natural. The bone hit the floor first and stopped abruptly, standing neatly vertical. The skin struck it and wrapped tightly about it, so tightly that after a moment it was impossible to tell where its edges were. The bone lurched as more bones budded and flowed from it, but as quickly as the new bone appeared, it was submerged in the flowing skin. The small ball of hair landed on top of the growing stack of organic material, teetered, and then fell off. It tried repeatedly to regain a perch, but seemed doomed to failure. The rag whirled around and around the structure, too fast for Cabal's eye to follow closely, but he got the distinct impression that it was changing color. The stack of bones were producing a spinal column with a painful clicking pop as each vertebra grew out of the one beneath it. As it completed the thoracic section, ribs sprang out like the opening of a clothless umbrella. The skin flowed upward like the rising level of a liquid within a glass, almost concealing the bubbling formation of organs within the torso. arms suddenly burst out as swiftly as the blade of the flick knife, reminding Cabal to put his away. The circling rag swept in and flew a complex weaving pattern over the surface of the body, and where it flew, clothing appeared. Like ghastly toast, the skull popped up from the neck and grinned maniacally in the way that skulls do. Even when the skin wrapped over it, it continued to grin at Cabal with immodest glee. The skin rolled over the ivory vault of the brain pan like a rising tide over a boulder on the beach, met at the top, and sealed. Standing before Cabal was a man who hadn't existed a minute before, slightly shorter than he, black, painfully thin, and dressed in black trousers, white shoes with black spats, a white shirt, and a gleaming waistcoat of black and white vertical stripes. In his hand was a straw boater with a yellow band about it. The man clapped it on his head just in time to prevent the hank of hair settling on his entirely bald skull. A few hairs made a dive for his forehead and knitted quickly into eyebrows, but the rest balanced on top of the boater forlornly for a moment before dropping, lifeless, to the floor. The man watched it go with dawning dismay, quickly lifting his hat and checking his skull. He was disappointed to find that he was as bald as a cue ball. "Aw," he moaned. "Aw, man," he finally, with an air of exasperation. "Aw, shit." He looked down at his body, examined his wrist, looked at Cabal as if the roof had just fallen in, and ran around. "A mirror, man! There's gotta be a mirror around here." Cabal watched him run. The man found a large, grimy piece of silvered glass that may have once been part of a mirror, and held it up to his face. He couldn't quite believe what he was seeing and scrubbed at the surface. It didn't improve things. "Look at me," he wailed. "Look at me. You've made me the skinniest guy in the whole world." "I did nothing of the sort," said Cabal testily. Everybody was such a critic. "I summoned you. That's just the way you turned up. Don't presume to blame me for any physical shortcomings you might display." But, the man put down the mirror and approached Cabal, emphasizing every syllable with his hands. "But you were the one sorting out the components, man. Where is my fat?" "Fat?" Cabal realized he may have made a small oversight. "Rag, bone, hair. That's traditionally it. Nobody ever said anything about fat." The painfully thin man waved his hands in disbelief. He looked quickly around the car and ran for the corner in long, angular strides. He grasped a crate and pulled it out into the open. Stenciled on the side was a single word: lard. "Just a little dollop, man, that's all. That's all I needed. I could have been a fine-looking man, guy. Instead of which I'm nothing but a bag of bones." He looked beseechingly at Cabal. Cabal looked back at him with a profound lack of sympathy. "Well, bones, what do you expect me to do about it? An intravenous drip of melted butter, perhaps?" "Do you think that would work?" asked Bones with piteous hope. "Not for a second. Look, in a little less than a year, all this," he indicated the immediate environs, "goes, and you, my vain friend, return to the components whence I raised you. So you must try to understand one simple thing. In 1 year's time, there won't be enough of you left to amuse a dog. Thus, I don't care what you look like, and neither should you. Our immediate concern should be getting this show on the road. Now, are you going to help, or am I going to have to dispose of you as an unsuccessful experiment and try again?" Bones put his hands on his hips and allowed himself to slouch into a sassy pose, not unlike a crane fly with an attitude. "You am de boss, boss. This dumbass boy sure am yours to command, ain't dat the truth?" "Excellent," replied Cabal, unperturbed. "Now come over here." "I was being sarcastic," said Bones in his normal voice. A cadenced tone and a largely American accent, with perhaps a hint of French growling through the long vowels as he walked to where Cabal crouched by the stack of signs. "You were being tiresome. Look at these. Freaks, dare and do, 8 wonders of the world look pretty standard sideshow stuff to me. So which ones are exciting? Which ones Will people come from near and wide to see? I need to know. Bones looked at him questioningly. Why are you asking me, boss? You're the man with the plan, aren't you? He looked closely at Cabal. Cabal continued to go through the boards, trying to find the secret. You have got a plan. Cabal stood up and stepped away. He glared at the signs. I don't understand. Why would anybody want to waste their time looking at this nonsense? It's rubbish. Bogus exhibits, deleterious mutations, lies. None of this is real. None of it's lasting. They're just... He sagged. He hadn't felt so useless in years. Dreams! I just don't understand it. Bones was having a few problems as well. But you volunteered for this, didn't you? Him downstairs wouldn't just sock you with this gig unless you knew what you were doing, would he? It's a wager. A bet? If Bones had lived a generation for every one of the 5 minutes he had so far drawn breath, he still couldn't have been more surprised. You got a bet on with the man himself? You're crazy. Nobody ever wins against the man. Bones tried to think of a convincing metaphor, and he failed. He's the man. Behind the dark spectacles, fire returned to Cabal's eyes. He's not going to win this one. You're kidding yourself, muttered Bones with evident disdain. Only folks in stories get the drop on his satanic luciferness. Sorry to be the one to break in news and all, but you're screwed, Jack. Cabal ignored him. He was looking at the signs again. I have to work to a budget, so I can't just start everything. I have to make some management decisions about what to go with and what to leave, and some of these sideshows will be useful. Others will waste my time and resources. I need advice, Mr. Bones. Which sideshows should I invest in? Bones shook his head regretfully. I can't help you, boss. End of the day, I'm just walking dust. You're the only real person around here. It's your call. I can't, replied Cabal conclusively. I don't understand people either. I'll have to get my advice from somewhere else. He looked into the distance for a long moment, and then he took a deep breath. I think I know just the person. He walked to the exit and jumped down onto the track. Denzel and Dennis were sitting by the train, throwing stones at the crow. None were getting even remotely close, but it watched the proceedings with keen interest all the same. You two, he spoke sharply, obey Mr. Bones' instructions until I return. They looked up as Bones stuck his head out and looked down on them from immediate above. He grinned. Howdy! They smiled dozily and waved back. Crow, here! Cabal ordered. The crow flew to him without hesitation and landed upon his shoulder. You're coming with me, so I know you're not up to mischief. Cronk, said the crow smugly. Bones leaned on the door jamb. So, what do you want me and the corpse boys to be doing while you're gone, Chief? Cabal pointed towards the engine. I'm not sure how long I'll be gone. It might be a few days. In the meantime, clean out the locomotive and get together some fuel. Do you know what it burns? Just about anything. Good. Load up the fuel car with wood and fill the boiler with water. There are loads of ponds and streams around here that shouldn't be a problem. Then see if you can get the line clear back to the junction. We'll need to be underway as soon as the carnival's put together. Bones glanced at the trees and pursed his lips. This didn't look like a small task. Oh, is that all? Nothing else? Cabal thought hard. Bones sighed. Him and his big mouth. Yes, if you've got any time left, I want the name of the carnival painted on the first broadside car, both sides. Can you sign paint? Sure, I can sign paint. I can do most stuff if I put my mind to it. What do you want to call it, boss? Cabal told him. Bones whistled appreciatively. Man, you're just full of surprises. Plug. Can you hear me?
There it is.
There we go. Alrighty. That is the end of chapter 2 and almost the end of this live. So
you and I both know why I'm hyped for chapter 3.
I do know. So, how are you? Thanks, Dad. Kronk to you too. Everyone loves The Crow.
I love
I've
him.
never had anybody who read the book that was like, you know what I hate? Crows. That crow is my favorite.
No, I love it. Read the
Yay!
book.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Yes, keep an eye on them. I hope you're liking the story. It's my favorite book, so I'm definitely enjoying reading it for you guys. The Crow is awesome. Thank you. I have never tried to read this book out loud in particular before. And it's definitely got some words in here that are like demon names that I'm like, how do I
Most
say
books
that?
have words.
How do I say that? There's like a bunch of like demon names, and you're just like, I don't. What?
I was about to say most books do have words, but
Not yet. Well, the thing is, like most of them have like common like nouns and names, and then there's this, and there's like
there's Johannes Cabal.
names in a row that you don't know how to say, and you're like, Almoazayan, it.
Close enough.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. And it's okay if you fall asleep. This is gonna go up on YouTube tomorrow.
It's
so
bedtime stories, so
yeah, and like especially just demon names that have like too many consonants in a row, and you're like, you know, I was like,
just
how
has
do
the
I say
entire
that?
alphabet and some numbers. When someone's name's an algebra problem.
Yeah, like every single one of these demons was named by Elon Musk. You have a problem. Like you're just like, that's not cool.
It's fine.
I am so glad you guys are liking it, and I hope you'll come back here next Tuesday, and we can read more. And if you can't miss it, or if you have a problem with tuning in, or having to drop out, or go eat dinner, or you know, homework, life stuff, you can always find the rest of it on YouTube. I'm also gonna post recaps the next day on my TikTok that just do like a minute or so summary of what you missed on Glee, I guess.
Please have that on.
That's what you missed on Glee? Yeah.
Listen, you and I both know that's how I tell stories sometimes, and I love it.
Yeah, literally, all I ate today was Denki's curry, and then that's all I'm doing is drinking coffee.
You're doing better than me, my guy.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna do that now that you mention it. I didn't even think about that until you just said it. So congratulations, Lady Aoife. I'm gonna
Listen,
link
Lady
my
Eva's been like doing all the work here, and I just appreciate them. Huh?
She's doing the most, like the most.
Like there's so I was like, oh, I gotta mute this person. I was like taking my 5 layers of blankies off, and then already done.
Yeah, like Lady Aoife is like doing the most all the time for no reason. Always shows up to mod, always like comments on my stuff, like super nice all the time.
Like,
They were
halfway through, I was like, I don't have to take my blankies away. I can just Lady Eva's already got me.
Yeah, for real though, like when I talked to you and you were like, you should make an Instagram, and I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I made an Instagram and I didn't tell anybody about it for like 2 weeks. The only people that found that Instagram were like people that knew me like in real life. Lady Eva was the first one to find it on accident. I hadn't even publicized it, put it on my TikTok, anything. They found it first, and I was like,
They're
dang,
like, I was already here. They were pre-followed.
I was like, you are on top of it, aren't you? She's so nice.
It's my favorite thing.
So nice all the time. Well, yeah, now everybody in the chat is like, Aoife is so great. Yeah,
well,
everybody.
That was a great bedtime story.
Are you gonna go to bed? You tired?
I mean, I'm tired, but maybe.
We all know I'm gonna be up until like 7 a.m., but you know, that doesn't mean the rest of you have to.
So, you don't gotta go home, but you can't stay here.
You don't gotta go home, but you can't stay here.
I might stay up reading another story. I might be up reading fanfics. I might be up reading fanfictions that I found.
You have like the exclusive ability to read ahead because I gave
Me?
you the second one. Yeah,
Oh,
because I gave
yeah.
you the second one. So you're like,
Listen, so I'm halfway through a book when you gave me that. And I'm very sad because I just want to start it. But my brain can't handle more, like,
reading more than one thing at a time.
I'm out here, like, barely keeping up with my book because I'm also, like, always reading fanfics. So, like, I get plot lines mistaken. Like, you don't have to worry about what the fanfics. You don't have to worry about the kind of fanfics. It's just fanfics. But I will constantly get characters mixed up with plots, and it's a terrible time. So I'm like, that doesn't sound good.
I don't know. I can read like several books at a time and keep them all separate somehow.
Isn't that nice?
Wouldn't that
lovely?
I almost kind of wish it weren't like that though, because you think
Isn't
you have
that
a
a cool time?
No. Hear me out. Because you have the capability of coming up with completely new content on accident. Just think about it. You could be like, remember when in Harry Potter, and then just go through the entire plot of Lord of the Rings, and you were like, and then they had to go bring the ring back to the mountain, and they're like, that didn't happen in Harry Potter, and you're like, whoa, hear me out. And then Ron says, and they're like, that's not Ron, that's Sam, and you're like, I don't.
Okay, you don't have to call me out for our Lord of the Rings marathon. But you're right. But definitely, like, cause I'm reading there's a series I'm reading right now, and there is a certain person in one of the fanfics I'm reading that I mixed up the names with for one of the characters, and now I just want a fanfic of it. Because I'm just seeing this character, I'll say that character, as a prince, and it's a time. It's like a fae prince.
I'm gonna write a fanfic.
You're gonna write it?
I told you about it, the cult one, where I was like, it's gonna be cool, and you were like, I don't need to hear anymore. I'm already in. And I was like, great.
No, dude, Shinsou. So, like, have you decided who the characters are gonna be for that fanfic? Because you said it was gonna be
It's definitely gonna have like the Batu squad in it, and it's gonna be Shinkami probably, but it is gonna it is gonna be Shinkami. I know that for sure.
Yes.
It's not gonna be out for a while. I just said this during live. Now people are gonna be like, "Where's the fanfiction?" It's not coming out anytime soon. I just started like literally 3 days ago is when I think I told you about it. Yeah, I told you about it the minute I had the idea.
Have you read The Cruel Prince yet?
I have not.
So that's the one I just finished, and I'm reading the sequel to it, but like, I just want a Shinkami version of that. Because I was just like, okay, but because anyone in the chat that has read The Cruel Prince, Shinsou is Prince Cardin. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Prince what?
You haven't read the book. You haven't read the book. He's like the main Fae Prince.
Yeah, sure, I can give a link whenever I make it. I haven't written it yet. I just want to preface that. Glad you're interested.
I think you'd like it, actually. I'll have you read it sometime. But yeah, that's all I'm thinking. That's the only thing that's been on my brain for like 72 hours.
Yeah, send me the whatever. Send me all the things. I like to read. I'll read anything. It stands still long enough. I maintain that. Yeah. I read that entire 800-page book. It took me a while, but I did it. I have to give it back to you now.
I'll trade you that book for The Cruel Prince.
Solid. We could do that. How was the visit at my mom's? Terrible. It's all over my TikTok. You can go. It's not great. That's why I don't visit her very often. But you know, I didn't die. Did I die? No. So
Did I die? No.
did I die? No. I'm still here. I'm back home, feeling great about it.
You know, no one's dead, so that's like no one's unalive. So you know, positives.
I'm glad you're here. We're looking into the podcast idea. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves with the time commitment that we need to work out. Because you have no idea, but me and Denki are stretched thin right now, commitment-wise. So that might be a bit.
We are stressed.
Yeah, you feel that on levels. Yeah. You don't understand our problems. We have limited time to film, and then on top of that, like work and stuff and doing things, and it's terrible. The book, or I'm gonna put my. I got a little toe tag. Okay, sorry. No, it's cool. Johannes, Cabal, the Necromancer. If you want to look it up, get it for yourself. You can do that. It's by Jonathan Howard. It's a great series. If you want to read ahead, you can do that. If you want to come back next Tuesday and watch, I will also have the video of this live, the first 2 chapters in their entirety, posted up on YouTube tomorrow. Right now, if you look up the YouTube, it doesn't have anything on it. I just want to preface that.
Because it's being recorded right now.
It's not on there. It's because this live is still going. It's not over yet, and I can't do anything until it's over. So, thank you. Oh yeah, no problem. I'm having a great time. I like reading. I would read all the time if it were up to me. And I didn't have to do anything all the time. And yes, I will see you next Tuesday, hopefully, if you all are here.
Thanks.
Maybe. I will get back with you on the YouTube channel if you can't find it, but I'm there were people like, bless you? Question mark.
Leave me
be. Oh, that was good. That was funny. But yeah, I'll get with you. I'll see if like what's up with the YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's just because I haven't posted anything yet. I'm sorry you missed some, but once again, posting it on YouTube after this live is over, and you can go and fall asleep to it when you actually go to bed if you'd like to. If that helps, I don't know. But yeah, I am super happy with the way this went. I'm super glad that you all are liking the book. And I will see you guys again next Tuesday. Okay. I thought your screen froze for a second. You just like went into a tableau.
I was just like waiting for the continuation.
Yeah, you just tableaued.
Yeah, no, because I was waiting for you to keep talking. I was just stuck for a second. Sorry, my brain kind of like started processing, and I was just like, but I was waiting for you to talk too.
Everything is Anxious Undertaker. Everything is, including the YouTube. So if you want to look me up on YouTube, it's Anxious Undertaker. And yeah, I will post the information about it tomorrow also on my TikTok, as well as the recap, so you all have the rundown if you missed it, and you can join us next time. But yeah, I'm gonna have the YouTube up on my TikTok tomorrow, and I'll make sure it works, okay? And that everything is up. But I'm gonna let you all go. I hope you all have a good night, and I hope you're significantly sleepy, and you guys sleep better than me. And you all have a good night. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye, Danks.
Bye, Chosh.